Hey, well, what's up, Colliders? It's Daniel here again. And hey, if you guys have been starving for a new Hunger Games book, then the wait's over. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, a new prequel to the Hunger Games series, just released. So let's talk about it. So the original Hunger Games were really probably in the last couple of decades one of the biggest cultural phenomenons that has happened in pop culture. Probably since maybe the end of the Harry Potter series, there hasn't really been another series that just has taken pop culture by storm as much as the Hunger Games did back when it was coming out. It's actually kind of faded in recent years. I hadn't realized when this book came out. It's been 10 years since the last Hunger Games book came out. It's been 5 years since the last movie came out, which is quite a long time of silence for a series that as big, as big a phenomenon as the Hunger Games was. So, as far as these books go, this is probably one of the most anticipated books that, maybe not for me or you personally, but just in a cultural sense, one of the biggest books that's been, people have been looking forward to see, to return to that world that they came to love with the original books or the original movies. I'll admit that I wasn't super. I've read the original Hunger Games books. I've seen the movies. I enjoyed the books and at least the first two movies. But as details about this new prequel came out, I wasn't as excited as I thought maybe I would be. And I don't know if it's just that I've been kind of let down by prequels in the past with either the Fantastic Beast movie series or the Star Wars prequels, which, as we'll see, has a lot of parallels with the Hunger Games prequel. A little cautious, and I guess to some of the premise of this book, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes takes place, I believe, it's 64 years before the original Hunger Games. The time period is set in the 10th annual Hunger Games, and if you remember from the original series, I think they start at the 74th, and the second movie or book is the 75th Hunger Games. So this is set, quite a bit before the Hunger Games are what they, will eventually become. The talking point around this book before it came out was that kind of the twist is that the main character in this book is Snow, Cornelius Snow, who, if you've read the original books or seen the movies, will ultimately become, the evil dictator president of, kind of the foe of Katniss in that series. So you can see it's not hard to spot the parallels to like the Star Wars prequels, where this is it's going back, it's telling the origin story of the main villain, and then it's kind of filling in some of the world building gaps and kind of explaining how did the world that we were introduced to in the original Hunger Games, how did it become what it is, kind of what led it to that point, maybe answering some questions that people have had. And I'm happy to say, did it succeed more? Were the odds in its favor? It did. I think this book it's a good book. It's not a great book. I've seen some people raving about this book already. I don't think it, I don't think it's really adding a whole lot to the story, or it didn't grip me the same way that the original books did. But overall, it's a good book. And I think some of the concerns that I had going in, am I going to be able to, get attached to this character that I know ultimately becomes evil? But it's handled in a really well done way, where oftentimes, I'll be honest, I forgot that I was the character I was kind of cheering for. Ultimately, I kind of forgot his eventual destiny of who he becomes, and just found myself kind of, getting invested in his character. And there's some other newer characters who obviously they're not in it as much as he is, but they're definitely Lucy is kind of the female heroine in this book. And she's not in it as much as I wish she was, but she's a standout. In some ways, I think she's actually a better hero to cheer for, more relatable and just captivating or intriguing than Katniss ever was in the original book. I think it handles the story well. It answers questions, but not in a way like some prequels where it's not just, this isn't a book that just exists just to connect dots and to answer obscure questions about, did you want to know where this came from or why this is called this? There's a couple pretty obvious wink, to the readers, where it's obvious they're making a connection to, what this is, you know where this is leading. But for the most part, it is a self-contained story. It is justified in being told. I know that was another question with most prequels, and with this one is, what's the point? We already know what's going to happen. But I think the story itself has enough to say and has enough interesting characters that it does justify its own existence. And it doesn't get bogged down like a lot of prequels in trying to explain every possible little mystery. Han Solo, where did he get his name from in the Solo movie? It's not doing that kind of stuff, which I did appreciate. I think it does get bogged down. One of the things that might stand out just from here is just the length of it. This book is significantly longer than the other books and the originals. It's over 500 pages. I think the originals are all within just a little over 300. And it's just too long. It's in some ways it suffers, I think, from the same problem that the last two Hunger Games movies suffered from, where they kind of stretched out. I think the original books, part of the reason why people got so into them is that they're streamlined, they're very immediate, they throw you right into the action. It's very fast-paced, almost too short to really explore all that they could. And this book gets away from that a bit, and it does take its time to kind of build, and there is a lot more slower moments of just sort of introspective as the characters are wrestling with things, and I think there's value in that, but the book definitely isn't the same kind of page-turning thriller. You just got to read, find out what happens next. It does get bogged down a bit, and some more of the philosophical kind of deeper themes. And I think as far as maybe that's a good segue to sort of, as a Christian, as someone looking at this, what are some of the themes? What can we take away from, a lot of Christians are hesitant about this series, the general premise of, throwing a bunch of kids into an arena, gladiator style, and forcing them to kill each other. It is a horrifying thought. It is a horrifying concept. It's shocking. These books are, they're violent, intentionally so, that, there's kids killing other kids. So I think maybe that has caused some Christian readers to be wary of it and to want to stay away. But I think actually thematically there's some interesting things in these books that I think, rather than pushing Christians away, should actually give us some meat to chew on. If I were to maybe boil it down to just kind of what are the two main kind of this interesting themes that are running throughout this, which carry over from the original. The first is human nature. That's sort of the question that this series has been wrestling with from the start is, who are we? Are we naturally good? Does the Hunger Games, society, does that corrupt these naturally good kids and people, or are we naturally evil? And, the Hunger Games just sort of exposes that we are selfish. We are out for our own survival. We will kind of, when pushed, it will bring out that kind of evil nature within us. And what's interesting is that in a lot of ways, this series and this book kind of doubles down on it, kind of lands on the fact that we are flawed, we are evil. That it's not just that society corrupts, but also that kind of down to our nature, down to kind of to our soul, that there is something off. There is a fallen nature to us that society and extreme situations kind of brings out the worst in us. And as a Christian, biblically, that lines up with the Bible. That the Bible and Romans, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We are all fallen beings. In this book, it's interesting that I would say of all the main characters in this book, most of their struggle, most of their story arc revolves around them trying to kind of transcend who they are, kind of get away from their own nature and become more or change or become different. And that's played out in different ways depending on where those characters are. And again, I don't want to ruin any of the plot beats in the book, but in the end, most of the characters, if not all of them, ultimately kind of end up generally where they were to start. There isn't sort of that successful transcending of their nature. And again, that's a theme that was picked up in the original Hunger Games, where Katniss never really did become that perfect kind of flawless hero. She always was that kind of same character throughout. And the other theme that again is carried over from the originals is just the kind of the power of media to desensitize and to kind of make a spectacle. It's interesting. The original books, the Hunger Games, the event in the books is a big spectacle, and people are watching, and it's sort of this annual. It's almost like the Olympics, and everyone's into it, and it's real polished. And when this book picks up is the 10th Hunger Games. No one's watching. No one in this world cares about it. It's just sort of an afterthought. There's no glamour. There's no it's not a kind of a polished, oiled machine like we come to know it. And part of this book is just playing with the idea of how do you get people involved in some of this? How do you get people to tune in and to get invested? You see some of the origins of just the games itself and the power of, people don't necessarily want just hard reality. They don't want truth. They don't want news. They want spectacle. They want entertainment. They want to bet. They want to play off things. They want sides to cheer for, and you kind of see the origins of that in this book playing out. And I think, you know, obviously that could have become a real preachy, on the nose, whack you over the head with that concept, with that theme in our current cultural climate. But I don't think it was. And you know, maybe you'll feel different that it's just preaching, but I think you can definitely find some parallels to, you know, this is, you know, the need to make news and stuff more entertainment and driven by spectacle and sensational headlines. Definitely, I think, even speaks to our current situation more now than even when the original books were coming out. So I think there's definitely some good themes to wrestle with. Ultimately, how she lands, it's not really a book, I think, that provides deep, profound answers to any of this. I think that the author's best at kind of writing that pulpy, fun plot twists than she is about kind of the philosophical stuff, but it definitely is in there. But hey, if you guys have read this book, I'd be curious to. I've seen mixed reviews of it. I've seen people just raving about it. This is better than the original Hunger Games. I've seen people just shaking their heads saying, "What's the point of even having this book? There's nothing about this. It doesn't add anything to the world." So I've seen both sides. As hopefully you guys can tell, I fall somewhat in the middle of that. This isn't an amazing book that I'm going to revisit, but it is a good book, and I think it does justify its own existence. But hey, if you guys read this book, if you guys have some extra time right now, stuck at home, to catch up on some reading, I'd love to hear what you guys think of it. You know, let me know if does it match up to your expectations? Does it fall short? You know, there's going to be a movie adaptation of this. Are you guys excited for that? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And hey, if you haven't done so, I encourage you guys, subscribe to our channel. Keep up with all the videos we're doing here. Make sure you like this video, and I hope that you guys are all continue to collide with your world for Christ.